Welcome to the Vault podcast. My name is Dave. With me is funny man Dan Liacha. Hey, buddy.
Hello. Hi. It's good to be back after we've told everyone that we're back, and
Yes.
then we weren't really back.
How many months ago did we tell everybody that we were back?
What is a month now?
Yeah.
Like, I had 2 years that I can't remember.
What is time?
What is time?
What is time?
What is
Dan,
time?
I've written a new introduction. You ready?
Oh, I'd like to hear this.
We know not every leader in kids ministry is in a big staff team. In fact, more than half the churches around the world have solo pastors, but no one should be alone in ministry. So we humbly ask you to consider us part of your team. Welcome to the Vault, where you keep your most valuable things, and what is more valuable than wisdom? How's that for an intro?
Oh, that was
Thank
wonderful. It feels like something that you spent hours on doing a lot of I just need to finish this, Dan. What do I need to say? It was the line, though, but no one should be alone in ministry.
Yes.
That summed it up, and we were happy with that, and that's why we're here.
But for the first time ever, we have got do we have a doozy for you today? This is incredible. This is a job interview because we want to expand our team and we need more team members, but you can't just have anybody join your team. You need to assess their abilities and their gifts and talents. Am I right, Dan?
Yeah, are they wheat or are they chaff? We'll soon find out.
Are they pearls or are they swine? No, that's probably
are they bone or are they marrow?
I'm not sure those work. Today's team member applicant, we're about to do a job interview with them right now. And who better to be our first applicant to join this team than Jim Wideman, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Jim Wideman to the podcast.
Hello, Jim. Big fan. It's so good to hear a marketable accent. It's just like most of our audience are going to understand him. They can't understand us. It's just wonderful to have you on, Brother Jim.
Well, it's good to be here. It really is. It's at my age, it's good to be anywhere.
There you go.
It's especially good to be here.
This is a very serious moment for all of us because, Jim, you are applying to become part of our team, but we need to know about you.
Yes.
And if you join our team, you're then joining all of the people on the Vault podcast team.
Yes.
Because we're a part of their team. Wow. So we're taking this very seriously.
Absolutely.
Well, do you have some questions for me, gentlemen?
Yes, he's done this before. Listen, we'd like to begin this job interview just with a quick ministry skill check. What we need you to do, Jim, is rank your ability from 1 to 10 in the following areas. Very simple. So we have 10 areas we'd like you to rank just to gauge your skill level. 1 being terrible, 10 being amazing. Let's begin. How is your ability, first of all, with puppetry?
Puppetry, I kind of started puppetry in the church, was one of the first people to do that back in the 70s.
Yeah. Okay.
And so came up with puppet tracks. At one time, I was recording for all the major puppet companies in America, skits and different things. And so created 20 different volumes of puppet songs called puppet tracks, and created puppet aerobics. So
probably a 10.
Wow. So I'm feeling like that's.
I have a hard time giving myself a 10 because there's always room for improvement. So I'd say 9. 9.
All right.
Puppet aerobics. That's.
Yes, puppet aerobics. It taught the basics of puppetry, and actually. Was probably one of the best-selling resource tools that I ever did.
Dan, this was meant to be a quick segment. I think this is going to take a little longer.
Sorry. Well, you don't normally say puppetry. Like, I kind of pioneered the whole puppet in children's ministry.
What a great way to start a job interview.
Yeah, I had endorsements with 3 puppet companies at one time. So there you go.
Great. Keep it going, Dan.
So this next one, Dave, just move your lips for me. Ventriloquism.
I did some tranquil. I used a dummy.
Did you?
early in ministry back in the 70s and different things, but kind of moved on to animatronics and some other types of puppetry and things, larger than life kind of things, and kind of moved on from just.
Can we get a number from you, Jim?
A number of what?
1 to 10. Well, let's just go through.
Oh, yeah, 9.
Okay.
No. All right. Let's pick up the pace here. Here we go. Balloon animals.
Here we go.
Balloon
animals. I'd say 8.5.
Okay.
8.5. I did balloon animals.
All right.
I kind of traded in some of these things for more leadership stuff in the 90s.
Right.
So 70s and 80s, I was doing these kind of things, but kind of moved on. Once we started running thousands of kids, kind of moved more into administrative stuff.
Amazing. All right, the fourth area of skill, overhead transparency production.
Overhead transparencies, and I did that in the 70s, but we moved to, I actually started before overheads. It was opaque projectors where you just stuck the whole book in there. And so did film strip, did 16 millimeter.
We need to press you for a number.
9.
Okay, great. All
right,
right,
because I used multicolored transparencies. So I just didn't do plain old white ones. I sprang for the 4-color assortment.
Right. Jim, the fifth area is, how are your photocopying skills?
Photocopying skills, they're pretty good.
All right, give us about a 7?
9.
9. Okay. Can we say audio cassette duplication?
Audio cassette, I don't have one anymore, but back when I had one, I was pretty skilled at it. I had high-speed duplicators and different things on my own, so 9.
Yep, okay. Felt board.
Felt board.
Felt board.
Operation.
I actually had not just your basic felts, but I had these Cena felts that were black light, where when you turned the black light on, you saw another image on the felt. So you would see, Jesus in the midst of the fiery furnace or in the story and all that. So I had the high-tech black light Cena felts.
So I'm gonna put you down for 11. I know you don't want to give it 2, but we're putting you down for 11 because that's amazing.
Oh dear.
What about your general craft skills, including but not limited to paper mache or scissors operation?
I'm good with scissors.
Okay.
But I have to have left-handed scissors because right-handed scissors do not work on a left-handed person. But paper mache, I never really got into paper mache. I'll be honest with you. So probably a 1 on my paper mache skills.
Oh, this is that's really going to affect the end-time score there. Okay. What about your Microsoft Excel spreadsheet ability? Spreadsheets.
Do you have Excel?
I went from a Commodore 64 straight to a Mac. I've never owned a PC in my life. And so, I do numbers, but I don't really do Excel. I have assistants that do those kind of things.
So
our CFO and some of those folks.
Lost touch with the common man. Yeah.
The final area is offering, collection, and counting. If you're in a kids ministry, are you good at that?
Listen, I am excellent. I have built scales, to weigh the offering between boys and girls.
Ooh.
We've come up with all kinds of different. I had a offering robot at one time.
Let's say 10 and a button. 10 and a button.
10 and a button.
There are a couple of bonus questions here. These are just for us to help you get to know you. Have you ever used the font Comic Sans before?
I have.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, that's
In fact,
dangerous.
I think I've used every font there is. Probably all in one
All right.
handout.
oh man.
When I started ministry, we used individual press-on letters, so all of our publications looked like ransom letters.
All right. Final question for the segment. In what year?
Yes.
What was the last year you used any form of clip art?
Oh my goodness! Probably 2000.
Okay.
Oh, that's acceptable. That's an acceptable.
acceptable.
Range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Jim. Well, what we've got, we'd like just to find about your background in ministry, of course. So
Okay.
I'd love to hear, first of all, tell us a time where you felt completely out of your depth in ministry.
Well, I think it was the time that I took a blind kid to camp, and his dad told me he'd be no trouble whatsoever.
Right.
Just remember, wherever I left him, that's where he'd be when I was looking for him. And that was not the truth because, first of all, he was not potty trained, although he was 10 years old. And then second of all, I knew there was something wrong with his eyes since he was blind, but I didn't know he liked to take his artificial eyes out when he got in water. And one of the first activities we did at camp was we went swimming. And so the year was 1979, and basically I had a young man that took his eyes out in the pool at camp, while when he turned around, he had white slots in his eyes, and the kids had a cross making the signs of the cross saying, "Children of the corn, children of the corn." And so I really felt kind of alone at that time.
Oh, God.
Right.
When you're beginning out, that would be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah,
Like
that was year 2 of ministry to children. A lot of things happened in between, but that week the young man got filled with the Spirit.
Oh, amazing.
And the campers voted him the camper of the week. And so
amazing.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
So, yeah,
You turned it around. Dan, have you got a question for our
turned
applicant?
around.
I would like to hear what idea that you championed, that you pioneered, that turned out to be an abject failure, like just a real stinker.
Well, back when I invented computerized check-in, all we really had was barcodes, and so there was no any kind of thumbprint or eye scan, retina scans, or anything, and so barcode was good, but it just wasn't, and although it helped, once we started running over 2,000 kids and needed to computerize all of our check-in and stuff, and then other companies started doing that, and other churches and things, and in the early 90s, and so barcode check-in didn't turn out to last forever.
Okay. I mean, if that's the worst that's ever happened,
Wow.
Jim, you've done pretty well.
I invented digital check-in and it only lasted 10 years.
Yeah. Just a
That's
failure.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry to hear that.
No,
All right.
there's been more failures. I did an egg drop one Easter. We were supposed to use a helicopter, and I talk about this in my latest book.
Oh, ching,
It's
ching.
one of 15 books that I have authored. But this one, we talk about this egg drop, and basically it was supposed to be a helicopter. The helicopter was grounded, so the pilot said, well, I have this little plane. I can do it. And, it was an absolute failure because he his brother, who was with him, was hanging out the door of the plane, throwing these Easter eggs, and they missed the field where the kids were and bombed the neighborhood. And so all these eggs were hitting these houses and cars. And then behind the church in this open field was a horse pasture, because y'all been to the South. There's animals in neighborhoods. And so these horses were just running back and forth and screaming and freaking everybody out. Well, then when the plane kind of scooped down to throw the Easter eggs out, there was this giant tree that he had to miss, and everybody kind of saw it. And to make a long story short, when the pilot got through dropping the eggs and we had, the egg hunt, when he landed, the Federal Aviation Commission took his pilot's license and arrested him. So that was a pretty big flop. And,
gosh. Oh, that's amazing.
It's one of the reasons I don't like outdoor events.
Right.
You just can't control everything.
Oh, that's oh gosh. Well, I love it, Jim. We'd like to give you some scenarios to see how you would respond, and just to find out a little bit more about how you would deal with situation. So here we go. Here's the first scenario for you.
Okay.
All right. You're a part of a church. This is hypothetical. Let's say you're a part of a church who's about to start a location for the very first time. They've never added a second location, and then you're in charge of making sure kids ministry happens. What do you focus on first?
I'm all about building a team, and so looking at building a kids team let's look at our launch team, look at who we're going to have for the kids, and start everything first of all with prayer, second of all with training. And then just come up with the room that we're going to decorate. Is this something that we can have some permanent decorations? Is it something that has to be picked up, take down, all the different matters, and just kind of count the cost budget-wise that way. And, it's amazing to me how large TVs are and how cheap they are. These days. And so anything that you can do, visually with multiple giant TVs rather than just building a backdrop. Early in the early days of children's ministry, we kind of got locked into a theme. I like in this world of video backgrounds being able to just kind of change that. So, count the costs, look at the budget, and build a great team and get after it.
That question of budget, do you ever is there ever well, let's put it this way, does there always have to be a budget? Like, is there a point where you would say, look, we can't do this without a budget, or that's not respecting the kids, or how do you approach that?
I've always worked for some great leaders who just valued kids. So probably the first church I worked at, I did not have a budget. And so I just got creative. Back then in the early days of puppetry in America, they did newsletters and they would pay for puppet scripts and different things. And I would write and submit things, and they'd trade materials for the copyrights to materials. And
right.
I've always been a real believer in finding people that have a gift to make money, but they don't necessarily want to work with kids. And so I'd make a deal with them and say, I'll never ask you to work with kids, but you have to give me $500 every time I ask for it. And and these guys would say yes. And so whether it was send 5 kids to camp, give me $500, or it was pay for something. I don't know if you saw my Facebook post, but there was a little girl in my first children's church that ended up being Miss America. And we did this wannabe night, and it's kind of a great story. And But anyway, her dad was one of those businessmen that loved children's ministry, didn't want to get involved, but man, he would pay for stuff. And so you just look for people to join the team financially as well as serving with their time.
I would like to know, when you hear the word discipleship in relation to kids, what are the first things you think of?
Well, I think of small groups and think of a disciple. It takes two folks to make a disciple, a disciplee and a discipler. And you just find people that are Christ-like in a certain area, let them hang out with some folks that aren't Christ-like in that area, and let that Christ-likeness rub off. And so that spending time, whether it be in small group every week or just asking questions, one of the greatest things I love about children's ministry is just talking with kids. And as you talk and give them honest answers, they'll ask you some honest questions on, well, how did you do this? Or how do you do that? Or when these situations happen, how do you choose? And then just giving them the word and walking that out. I was, and whether it be with kids or even adults, the greatest witness that we have is our life. I was talking to you, Dan, about being in the hospital the other week, and just my wife being in the hospital, my two girls, Yancey and Whitney, coming and hanging out. Before I was discharged from the hospital, I had 5 nurses in my room that said, "Hey, we've been watching your family, and we want to know about your marriage and some marriage tips, and we want to know about parenting. And after watching your family here in the hospital." And same thing's true whether it be on a weekly basis in kids' church or just everywhere you go. Your life is that testimony of how to disciple others.
This might be our last question here, Jim.
Okay.
When you think of a service for kids, what are some of the top things you think have to be in there? Non-negotiables, elements of a service. What wouldn't you do without?
Oh, Dave, I just realised that's not a scenario. So let's say you're in a church. Let's say you're in a church and someone comes and asks you, what are some of the top non-negotiables in a kid's service? See, it's a scenario.
Right. Scenario.
Let Dave say something, Dan, without being so mean.
Yeah, so oh gosh. So Jim, what do you think about these non-negotiables? What do you want to see in a kids' church service?
I want to see worship. I want to see the presence and power of God. That's why I love worship, is because we have the promise that He inhabits the praises of His people. And so that whole idea of worship, we're a real presence-based church at the Belonging where I work. And we just believe that Jesus wants to show up and do big things. And so to me, it's worship, it's presence, it's power, it's the Word of God, and fun.
I'd just like to say one thing I really appreciate about Jim is how he has taken his family along this journey. They're a wonderful family. Him and his wife both in ministry. His daughter's in full-time ministry. His son, his 2 son-in-laws and his other daughter both serving at their local church. It's just awesome. It's just awesome to see. And I think you've got a pretty good chance here.
There's a couple of applicants, Jim.
So.
Just so you know,
I've got some references.
Okay,
and,
right.
There's a few other things that I invented that if I need to throw those in, like pre-youth ministry, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade ministry.
Look, aside from this interview, I'd just like to say personally, it's been an absolute blessing getting to know you over the years. You've written the foreword for my first book. I know you're on book 14.
Yes. Yeah.
But you did. I appreciate that. Thank you. It was a small book, but it was a small book with a purpose.
It was a wonderful book. It's a good book.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so it's been absolutely amazing. As we mentioned at the beginning of the interview, there are other applicants, so we will be in touch and let you know.
Yeah.
But I think you've got a pretty good chance.
I think you're in the top two. You're in the top two. There's
it was
one
kind
other
of
person.
funny. The little Hillsong guy that from the book area had he was over at a conference that I was, and he was trying to sell me your book.
Right.
And I told him, I said, I wrote the foreword. And he goes, really? Yeah. So he didn't believe me. He thought I was just some old guy that didn't want to buy books. So.
Oh, listen,
That's
thank you so
amazing.
much, Jim. We really appreciate it. Aside from the fun and games, we pray for your health. I know that now, as you're watching this in the beginning of 2022, Jim's going through some health struggles. So make sure you're praying for Jim. We need him around. We need him to stick around for a few more years.
Yeah, and you guys are coming over.
We've got an
That's our
exciting
plan.
new project that's going to involve
And all
Brother Jim.
trips end up at my house somehow.
Yes.
So it's kind of fun.
All right, Dan, thanks so much for your presence, Dan, because you had to be here. Thanks, Jim, because you wanted to be here. This has been the Vault Podcast. We'll see you next time with another applicant. Let's see if they can become part of the team. Thanks, everybody. See you later.